Ladies and gentlemen, to the Thursday edition of the Pro Wrestling Report Primetime. What a day it's been. What a week it's been. We're so glad to be back with you live again. I am joined by my two associates and two great co-hosts. Firstly, joining us is David Herro.
Yes.
And also, Hurricane Helms. How you guys doing today here on a Thursday night on Fight?
Doing super.
We are doing super, aren't we? I mean,
that's a matter of opinion. I actually think Hurricane's super, but Dave, I don't think I'd put you in that same category. I mean, I know you run around talking about Super Friends with your little comic book crayon shirt that you make people wear, but Shane is legit. I mean, he's got superpowers.
He has Herro powers. I have superpowers.
What's the difference?
Slight difference. Mine fade in and out. That's what's the difference.
They have pills for that.
That's what Captain America got. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What do you call it?
Is Blue Chew the new sponsor? Is Blue Chew going to sponsor this show too?
We'd love them to.
They're sponsoring everything else.
We'd love them to. Well, guys, thank you guys for joining us. Thank you all for joining us all over the world on Fight TV and, of course, streaming live across our social media channels. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the show. Subscribe to us right now on YouTube and like the page on Twitter. And add us and follow us on Facebook at PWR360 on Facebook. Each of us individually, on Twitter. Each of us individually on Twitter as well. At Dameon Nelson is yours truly, along with at David Herro and at Shane Helms Com. You know, Shane, I want to ask you about that. I know you and a lot of people from North Carolina have that com after your Twitter handle and your social media handles. What was the original? Where'd that come from? What does it mean?
Well, ShaneHelms.com is the longest wrestler-run website in the history of the business.
Really?
And so, yeah, actually, I was the only one that had com. When I signed Matt and Jeff and all them up, and I'm the one that signed them up on Twitter. I actually helped them create their account. Matt wanted to put brand behind his, so that's what you're thinking about for the other North Carolina.
Yes,
brand.
Yes.
But com, I wanted everything to leave back to the website, which is in massive need of an overhaul right now. But we're working on it. We've actually been doing it during the downtime. But that's where it came from. And you will not believe how many people have tweeted me at ShaneHelms.com to ask me what my website is.
You forgot the dot. They can't put the dot in on their own. That's what it is. Not everybody gets a period.
Well, especially if you're male.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Half the population does.
I'm lost. I don't understand. Well, what I do understand, though, guys, is
I'm not surprised by that.
Last night, it was Wrestling Wednesdays. It was NXT. It was AEW, both, presented for the first time. AEW for sure was live. And AEW, don't know the ratings yet, not that they matter per se, but they definitely had a more newsworthy night coming out of Jacksonville, Florida. And let's talk about the biggest thing that happened. We saw the return/debut, their return to wrestling, but their debut in AEW, that of Dash and Wilder, formerly The Revival, now FTR, which means a bunch of things. They made a big splash entering the AEW arena and getting in the ring with the Young Bucks. This was something we have talked about, that these two would probably be one of the first two to show up in another organization after their WWE release, because they got released on their own terms. But Shane, how did it strike you, and what were your thoughts when you saw these two enter the AEW arena or drive in to the AEW arena last night?
I thought it was a good moment. It was a little, that opening 6-man was a little choppy, and that's just being honest as a professional.
Yeah.
But I think the business was accomplished. The inclusion of Blade and what's the guy's name with the monstrous mustache?
The Butcher.
The Butcher. I don't know why I can't remember. That's so obvious. Including them, I thought that was creative. Having to take the Matt taking the injured participant out, which kind of eliminates Matt from the scenario. I thought that was well done. So that leaves the ring open. Here comes FTR. To the ring, so I thought it was well done. It accomplished what it needed to. It's one of those things. I wish there would have been 15,000 people there cheering and reacting to it. But they made the best of that situation. And at the end of the day, I'm glad to see those guys there. That made me happy. We know we're going to get some fantastic tag team wrestling out of this, which is my favorite part of the business is tag team wrestling. So I'm on board. They kind of didn't jump the gun. We're here to be heels. We're here to be nasty and all that type of stuff. So who knows? They left the things open. We don't know exactly where they're going, but we know that they're going to get there at some point.
And what's cool about that is it shows that they're not going right into a program with the Young Bucks. They're probably going to get the Butcher and the Baker first and then start off with them and then eventually gradually grow to the Young Bucks. Otherwise, it would be another instance where you bring somebody in right away that just left WWE and put them in a high-profile match. I think this way they're going to have FTR start with some of the lower tag teams and work themselves up to the Bucks, which I think by the time they get there should be well into late summer, and we can definitely, hopefully, have some people in attendance by then.
Their name, FTR, which stands for a number of things. F the rest, F the revolt. How do we feel about that? Obviously, they're not going to be the Revival again, but it's clear that it is those two. But how do we feel about the name, Dave?
I don't think the name really matters.
Really? I can call you George, and it's the same
sure,
thing?
If you want to.
Jefferson?
Call me George of the Jungle, first of all. But with FTR, there's so many other ways you can brand it. I mean, look at what they did with NWO and DX. Just 3 letters gives you way more options of way cooler, more interesting ways of doing merchandise.
Shane, what do you think?
Yeah, it doesn't bother me. I know they wanted to do the Revolt. Unfortunately, there was another tag team in the Indies that had already kind of had a claim to that moniker, Caleb Conley and Zane Riley. Shout out to those North Carolina boys. I understand why they can't do the Revolt, but FTR, like Dave said, it leaves it open because it kind of is a throwback to the Revival, and I like that. I like that there's a nod to that. So it doesn't bother me at all. FTR can go. There's a lot of things we can do with that in terms of merchandise.
So the Young Bucks, is that where they should be thrust into? Dave said that we should not have the expectation, or it's not good to see another team from WWE come into AEW and get thrust into that top match. What are your thoughts on that? And I would challenge it before you answer to say, does it matter if they're in the top match or if they walk out with a championship from that top match? Is there a difference between those two things, and where should these talents like FTR be put? Should they go into that top spot?
I mean, I would like to see establishment matches. You bring them in, you put them against another tag team, maybe 1 or 2 weeks, but we know what the fans want right away is the FTR and the Young Bucks. We do know that. So, I mean, there's no championship involved right now. So it doesn't matter as much right now if they do have an earlier match. And I'm not saying right now, I'm saying in a couple of weeks. It's not as significant right now who gets that first win because the championship isn't on the line. I think we know that one of those teams is going to eventually end up with the championship. So whoever gets that first win, I would say they end up with the championship, or whoever doesn't get that first win, they end up with the championship, and then they got a natural, contender when they come back in the championship match. At some point for the AEW Tag Team Championships, it will be FTR and the Young Bucks.
And that's a match I want to see.
Oh, and you know what? It's going to be a great match because FTR is the anti-Young Bucks. They don't do dives. They punch and a kick. So I think that's going to be very interesting going forward as to how they're going to build towards that.
You say a punch and a kick as opposed to what? Elbows and flips?
See,
Right, exactly.
I disagree. They do a lot of moves. It's kind of a gimmick that they say just punches and kicks.
But I'm talking about their gimmick.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, they do a ton of shit.
Thank you, Hurricane, for challenging him. And Dave, again, you slid right out of that one because that wasn't what you were saying at all.
No, but that's how they wrestle. They don't do all those things. When did you see them as the Revival doing flips and dives? You never did.
No. That's not the question. The question was, you're saying that's what the Young Bucks do.
The Young Bucks do a lot of that crazy stuff.
They do. That's not all they do.
But that's what they're known for. You watch a Young Bucks match hoping to see some crazy set of moves. No one has ever said that they're great storytellers.
Okay. Well, it was an active AEW, as we said. Several other key things happened on this broadcast before we get to what happened at the end of the broadcast, which was substantial. Britt Baker, Dr. Britt Baker came back. She gave, what was it, the rules of being a good person or something like that?
The rules of a role model.
The rules of a role model, absolutely.
That was brilliant. That was fantastic.
Did you take him to heart, Dave?
Well, no, I mean, I was more upset with Sammy Guevara making fun of the knee scooter than anything. But
hey, at least he was finally on crutches. Saying that she's going to come back at All Out and just laying it all out there, if you will. Mm-hmm. I thought it was well done. What'd you think, Shane?
I thought that was very entertaining. Her calling Statlander an alien was a crock of shit. That crock of shit line immediately popped me. The role model spelled ROLL on the back of the wheelchair. That was a little thing that just really tickled me for whatever reason. I thought she's got a great delivery. She's a tweener. She's not that heel that you're going to hate because you're entertained by her. If you're making me laugh, I'm never going to hate you, no matter what. That's one thing that I try to teach heels a lot. If you're making me laugh, I'm not going to hate you. Yep. Now I'm going to like you, and then you lean to a tweener. And that's not a bad thing, but just know where you're at. I really enjoyed that segment.
Yeah, Britt Baker, who would have thought that this injury would actually be a benefit for her, because now it gives her more opportunity to establish her character. And what they did with her last night, the role model thing, was hilarious. Very well thought out, very creative. I loved watching it. And, it's going to be hard to hate her when she's doing all that kind of fun stuff that the other ones aren't up to speed on yet.
Yes, and two, now when you put her in a match with a crowd that's really entertained by this heel, and you go to the champion match, she had one of those non-title matches, which I just hate. They're stupid anyway. She just won the championship, this very physical match with Nyla Rose, and now she's, for whatever reason, in this non-title match, which was very hokey and clunky, and not a lot of personality in it on her part. And then you go to Britt Baker, who's all personality and so entertaining. To me, that was the babyface. If you combine those two segments, the babyface there was Britt Baker, because that's the one that entertained me. That's the one I want to see.
So here's my question about that. I think the segment was great as well. I agree with you guys, but the beginning of it was weird. What was that Shivani thing part of that, or was there really some communication issues, or do you think it was part of the skit?
I think it's part of the skit. Britt Baker and Shivani's been having fun with each other back and forth on social media, and they kind of jab each other on the show. I think it goes back to as far as the cruise, the last Jericho cruise. So I think it was intentional. It might have came off a little flatter than they thought it was going to. It didn't play as well, but
yeah,
I think it was intentional.
Well, the quote-unquote audience didn't interact or didn't react to it. I think that's what might have been missing. Go ahead, Dave.
Whoever would have thought Tony Schiavone would have such a role with AEW that now he is completely interactive with the talents as well. Because before, when we'd see him, in Georgia Championship Wrestling, WCW, he was just predominantly a commentator. He didn't interact. And now he has a role in the company where he's one of the players.
He's very similar to one of our personal favorites, Mean Gene. You see how Mean Gene, after a while, his personality, he was no longer just a guy holding a microphone. He was a guy that you would interact with, and we see there's a lot of backstage interviewers. They say, oh, hey, here's the question, and whatever the question is, and then you go to the talent, and you don't really give a shit about the person on the microphone anymore. Mean Gene became a talent, and you wanted to hear him just as much as the person he was interviewing. So Tony's kind of, to me, and, I don't want to compare him to Mean Gene because you're comparing him to a giant there, but
right.
That's what it reminded me of.
There's similarities. Yeah. It's cool to see because it's a different side of Tony Schiavone that I've never seen before. And I've been watching wrestling, for 35, 36 years. And it's cool to see the commentator announcer have a little bit of fire and fight back.
Yeah, I knew Tony from WCW. We became friends there. He's a big comic book guy, as a matter of fact. And he would refer to me, especially when I grew out the beard, as the Punisher of 3 Count. Just because he was a comic book guy too. So Tony's got a lot of personality, but he did his job. When you're behind the desk and you're commentating on the match, you don't want to override the match with too much personality because you'll overshadow the story you're trying to tell. So he's really good at being the dry guy, the straight guy, so to speak.
So
Now he's getting a chance to show a little bit more personality, which is neat.
It's a very interesting point, which spurs another thought. You've got Jim Ross, who's beloved, but really didn't become beloved until after that whole series of sketches in 1999 when he was going up, with Dr. Death and Bart Gunn and all that. That's when he became good old JR and the hat and all that stuff. And then you've got Michael Cole, who also, I wouldn't say he's beloved, but he's very much respected and versatile in the business. But that, too, came from his heel run, if you will. Now, you go back to Tony Schiavone, Mike Tenay, Gordon Soley, whoever else. Just about everybody but Schiavone, aside from his TNA incident, were involved in a storyline of some sort at some time in their broadcasting career. Does that ultimately help or hurt the connection that they have with the audience as a storyteller or as a commentator from your standpoint, Shane?
I don't think it helped JR, not the heel thing, because nobody bought it. They didn't buy it at all and got away from it as quickly as they could. It helped Michael Cole because Michael Cole's hateable, which is a good quality to have. Michael Cole.
He's like
Michael
you,
Cole,
Dameon. Yeah.
Like me as well. I can switch it on. But yeah, Michael Cole so is Mike Tenay. Mike Tenay's so intelligent it can almost be annoying. So it just depends on if it worked or not. It definitely didn't work for JR. JR was just a likable, lovable guy, had a lovable voice.
Did it not work, Shane, or did it backfire and work?
I think it might have just, because it was so bad, like them forcing us to hate him, it really amplified, hey, we like this guy. We don't want this. We do not. We've seen heel turns that didn't work. It's like, man, we want to like this guy. Bring him back. And we've seen it vice versa. I've seen babyface turns where it's like, I don't like this guy. This shit ain't going to work, So by failing, it did kind of amplify it a little bit. But he would have got to where he was going to be no matter what. He was going to get that love and that respect just because he's the best to ever do it.
Talking about Schiavone, when they announced he was coming in to work with JR for AEW, a lot of people, I don't want to say they groaned, but they weren't that enthused. They thought, okay, they're bringing back the WCW guy on TNT. Okay, we get it. I don't think any of us, or at least I know for myself, I had no idea how much of a player he was going to become with the AEW brand. And he's been a great signing for them. Him and JR together, and you sprinkle some Excalibur in there, that announcing team is highly entertaining. Especially during the pay-per-view, listening to those old-timers, and I'm calling them old-timers because they are, compared to the guys in the ring, calling the matches and the things that they're seeing, it just brings a whole different dynamic.
And let's go back to Double or Nothing, and before we get to the two other big things on Dynamite this week. Double or Nothing was interesting in the way that the announcers, you talk about the old school ones, Jim Ross, Tony Schiavone, and then you've got Excalibur, who's been pretty damn good, actually. I think I was conditioned to think he wasn't good, but he's actually doing a lot more of the play-by-play and the technical elements of the broadcast than the other two are, which I wouldn't have expected. But we did see some times during Double or Nothing where some of the ridiculousness happened during the matches, and you could almost hear JR groaning. And at one point that was specific was when Marco Stunt brought out the small ladder in the ladder match. And then him and Orange Cassidy, I think it was, choke slam somebody else. And Schiavone asks JR, hey, what do you call that? He goes, I won't. And it just sounded like he meant it. So it's a new, I hate saying this because I don't think it's necessarily true in all cases, but it's a new era of wrestling. Wrestling has changed and evolved in such a way that maybe it has a lot of traditionalists looking at some of those things and wondering why, and not being in a place where they could present it the way maybe it could be presented by others. Do we think that there's any validity to that, Shane?
Yeah, definitely. I think when you're a voice on that microphone calling the match, you're speaking for the company. That's why Vince McMahon was always in that ear. Because he knew that when you're speaking for him, and you're representing the company. So if him by saying that, and I understand JR, he's going to be honest, especially at this stage in his career, he's more off the cuff than ever, more honest than ever. But what did it help by not putting over that choke slam or whatever spot you're talking about. Who did that help? Who did that put over?
Right.
Still your job is to put what's happening over there to elevate the story. There's a couple of times during the Stampede that they were kind of goofing on it a little bit. Yeah, we know it's crazy. We know it's crazy. Let us form that opinion. You're supposed to help the story along. You know what I mean? So that's what I say. When you're the voice of the company, you just have to at all times be cognizant of it. No matter how many years of experience you got in the business and no matter where you're at in your life, and you're going to be super honest and all this, that's not the job. The job is to put over that product that the consumer is seeing. That's the job at the end of the day.
Doesn't it become difficult, though, Shane, if you don't have a very compelling story to tell? Yeah. And that might be one fault. That may be one fault in some of the matches in AEW is the stories are not there.
Yes, and so it's hard, and too, especially when you've been doing it for years and years and years, and you've seen some of the greatest stories of all time. So now you got to try to present with the same energy a match that has no story and isn't even that good sometimes. Yeah. That job behind that microphone is incredibly difficult, hard, very hard. You don't care about these people; they're not good. The story isn't good, but somehow you got to dig it. But that's the job.
Would you do it, Shane?
Not everybody can do it.
Would you want to do it on a major scale?
No.
No?
Why don't you think about it for a second first?
I did it a few times. I did it in WWE a few times. I know I popped Vince on the headset when I called Jimmy Yang half Asian, half stupid. And I was like, I'm done. I'm leaving on a high note.
Dave, that's what you usually say, which half?
But that's a tough job, man. That's more difficult than people realize.
And to that point, I think that it's definitely in the category of those underappreciated roles in wrestling. And you both book shows, you've both been in shows. The referees, the commentators, the ring announcers, the people that got to work all night long. Granted, they're not taking the physical risks, but the psychological commitment that they have to make, especially in the case of the referees, because they're almost more important than the performers in the match sometimes, is sometimes not appreciated by wrestling fans.
Well, yeah, because with the referees, they're the ones that solidify the story. Because if they're not there for the finish or they miss or see something that they shouldn't miss or see, well, now the entire idea and the premise and the reaction you're hoping you get now is no longer there.
Right.
And like Shane said, if the guys calling the matches aren't making the fans interested and they seem unenthused, then by default, the fans now become unenthused. So it doesn't matter, the guys can go out there and put on here's that word again, 5-star match. But if the referee is not in the right position and the commentators aren't enthused and making it feel special, that 5-star match isn't a 5-star match.
So talking more about Double or Nothing, this is Primetime Live. We are on Fight TV Thursday night. Hurricane Helms, Dave Herro, and Dameon Nelson here with you. Thank you for joining us wherever you may be. We've talked about a little bit about AEW Dynamite for last night. We're going to talk about Double or Nothing because both of you last weekend in a bonus episode of Pro Wrestling Report, which streamed this past Monday night on Fight, did Be the Booker. Fantasy booked, if you will, Double or Nothing. And
I dominated.
I actually think that that tweet needs to be fact-checked because the numbers actually show that Shane dominated in the Be the Booker, as to be expected.
Whoa. What were the results?
The results?
I think I was like 9-2, and Shane was 11-1.
You know what? You're wrong. Let me find the results here because I do have them. I keep my notes. Here we go. So let's see. How many matches did Dave have? 1, 2, 3.
4.
3.
7.
3.
I had only 3 matches right.
Best Friends winning, MJF winning, and Cody winning.
And I had John Moxley winning.
Yeah, sure. You got 4.
And then I had the Elite winning. So that's 5. See?
Oh, wait. Yes. Okay. Maybe you're a little right.
Wow. A little right. I feel like I'm getting railroaded here already.
All right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You got 5. Shane got 1, 2, 3.
Shane, no, was just asking me.
4,
7-0. Yeah.
5, 6, 7. So again, about that domination.
But I was 5-0. I had 0 losses.
As did one Shane Helms. But let's talk about two of the matches. Firstly, the ladder match, the casino ladder match, where you had to get the chip to get a championship opportunity. And we did see the surprise entrant, the TBA entrant, if you will, which was Brian Cage, win that matchup. Now, both of you, though, at the end of the episode came back and said, maybe Scorpio Sky could do this thing. So technically, Shane, you were right, in picking Cage, or to be announced. But Dave, what were your thoughts of the match overall after it happened?
Well,
here we go.
The match to me didn't make a lot of sense at times, because if the match starts out with Kazarian and Scorpio Sky, and I get it, they're the two baby faces, they're the guys that do right, and they got 2 minutes before anybody else comes down to the ring, why wouldn't they both just go get the chip, pick one of them to win it? If he then beats Moxley, the other guy gets the first title match. You know what I mean? So I think that was kind of weird. Why wouldn't they look out for each other and be the guys to go grab the chip? I thought that there was – see, we're spoiled with having matches with the Hardys and Edge and Christian and the Dudleys, and even some of the Money in the Bank matches when you have a John Morrison and a Shelton Benjamin and guys like that involved in there. And then we see a bunch of characters in a ladder match, and it just seemed like it was too scripted. It was too choreographed. Like they were waiting to do the next thing. It didn't seem like it was guys fighting for that chip at times.
You mean it doesn't make sense for a skateboard to be involved when you're jumping off the top of a ladder onto it?
Well, it just how does Orange Cassidy still pretend like he doesn't know how to win that match?
So I got to say this, and I'll be careful here, but I have said many times I'm a huge fan of Jim Cornette's podcast. I listen to it and I cringe every week because it's like, oh, he's going there and he's not stopping. Well, he's got a new name for Orange Cassidy.
Yep.
Pockets.
Pockets.
And I think it's fantastic. I'm not going to say the names he has for everybody else because I don't want to be associated with what he calls Marco Stunt, especially because that's just not right. But Orange Cassidy's great. In this match, though, to me, it also felt there was a little – there wasn't that something was missing. It was just very different. And, Dave, I agree. Their eyes weren't always on the prize. But the man who would know best and his opinion would matter most would be you, Shane. This ladder match where we saw Brian Cage, the big monster, debut and win the match, get the opportunity. What did you think of it overall after it happened?
I'm going to agree with Dave here. How the match is kind of laid out with you can win it before the other people even get into the match is very odd. I see what they tried to do. They tried to combine the Rumble with a ladder match with a Money in the Bank all into one. Okay, but the Rumble, you can't win until everybody's there. You can't win that shit until everybody's in the ring. So what happens if somebody gets that chip before, they're never going to do that. If you advertise the match with whatever 10 guys and then the third guy comes out, shoots up the ladder and gets the chip, the fans are going to be massively disappointed. So it's you kind of paint yourself into a corner by having a match like that you can win before other people even get there. So
that doesn't add to the excitement? The anything could happen atmosphere?
It would if it would actually happen, but we know that it's not. That shit is not going to happen unless they watch this show and just to put it in my face. Go, we'll show you. I don't know why you would do that. Like I don't know if it's one of those ones where you bring them all into the ring, or you surround them, and I don't know how you fix it. I think that match needs to be tweaked a little bit. Those matches are dangerous. They have to be choreographed. But the thing is, you don't want it to make it seem that way. That's the secret. When you can kind of
that's what they did. It seemed choreographed.
Yes. So there were some things I liked about it, some things I didn't. But the business got accomplished, and I picked the mystery man to win.
in true Heenan and King Lawler philosophy. Hey, so the Stadium Stampede match, Shane, your thoughts? The Elite get the win. It was a unique presentation indeed. It was high spots, comedy spots, low spots, and spots in between. I was entertained. What did you think after the match?
I liked it. It was a lot of funny. Sometimes it was too much because once you get, One of the secrets I did, and being a guy that had used a lot of comedy in his matches, I would just do the comedy up front load it. Because once we start punching each other in the face, it's not going to be funny anymore. I can't go back to doing this when you've been kicking my damn teeth out.
Yeah.
That just psychologically doesn't make sense. There was a couple of the Gaga spots toward the end that were a little goofy and kind of took me out. The commentary took me out a little bit. We touched on that earlier. But overall, the good way overshadowed the bad. A lot of funny stuff. Like I said, we're in a weird situation, making the best of a bad situation. I thought it was really fun. Adam Page riding that damn horse. That shit's going to live forever. It's never going to die. Just him riding that horse down. That was hilarious. There's a lot of funny stuff.
I hated the horse, and then I loved the horse.
Yeah, I love the horse. And like just killing Sammy Guevara again. I'll tell you what I would have done on this episode of Dynamite. He would have had on those big knee braces like Steve Austin had. He would have had big braces on each arm like he tore his biceps. He would have had a neck brace on. And I would have had Jake Hager, whatever his name is, wheel him out on one of those hand carts so that he can't even walk. They had him on a crutch, but that wasn't enough for what's happened to him in these last couple of weeks. They are really underselling the story. They're really, they're doing themselves a disservice by not really going over the top with his selling because they put him through all this shit.
Yeah.
Go let the selling tell the story. The selling isn't. Here's a hint for all you guys workers watching this. Selling isn't taking a move. Selling is what happens after.
Yep.
There's a difference between taking a move and selling. You can take it great. That's not selling if you just get right back up. Selling is what happens after. So what you're saying is he wasn't selling? So go ahead.
So what you're saying is he wasn't selling when he got suplexed for 100 yards, right? Is what you're saying?
No, he was taking it for a while. Taking it, and then the selling comes after.
Right.
Like he took the best twist of fate I've ever seen. But then he's fine. He sold it for a little bit that day, but the next week I wanted him to come out and just be crippled.
So, a lot of people have complained how WWE NXT has copied AEW by bringing their fans into the crowd or their talents now around the ring as well. I find it interesting that the people haven't said, well, the chip on a pole match wasn't Money in the Bank, or that the main event, the Stadium Stampede, wasn't a cinematic match like AJ and Undertaker. It seems like both companies are doing very similar things, but it's just very one-sided as to how the fans are looking at everything.
Well, we can give that one a little bit because Matt Hardy was in that match. And with the Delete and Decay stuff, that predated the cinematic,
Absolutely.
The graveyard
Correct.
match by far. But as far as the poker chip being the Money in the Bank, without a doubt, that's exactly the same. Both companies, a good idea is a good idea. That's just how it is. And this business is notorious for jacking people's ideas. I would have it happen in production meetings. So it just happens. But I agree with you. It does seem like fans don't acknowledge when their company does it. But how are we going to change that? That's fans being fans. I do like how WWE, they'll put up the hockey thing. The hockey glass around it. They can't. Huh?
Hate it. I hate it. I hate it.
Why?
I thought they were doing Raw and NXT in a haunted house. It looked like the Hall of Mirrors with all those lights and lasers shining off of it. And it's just.
What if the Mirror Master came out?
Would that be fantastic? That would be awesome.
I'd be the only one that knew. I mentioned the Mirror Master on Monday Night Raw one time.
And they never mentioned really?
Yeah, me and my comic friends knew what it was. The rest of the wrestling world had no idea what the hell I was talking about.
So, Dameon, why don't you like it? I mean, I think that's the way of future wrestling events for a while.
It's not. It absolutely is not. It's not going to be. It's not.
Okay. I mean, why do you think no?
Well, firstly, we can't, there's no single – I'm going to be careful here. So you've got the CDC. You've got the CDC who says what we should and shouldn't be doing.
Right.
But because of our current political situation, the states are all doing their own thing, and the federal government's not mandating them to do the same thing. So you don't have to have such barriers and protections everywhere you go. So why travel with all that everywhere you go? And who knows 6, 9, 12 months from now what the expectations of the consumer are going to be. That's why I'm not sure it's going to stick. It might. I just hate it. I think that separation takes the feeling out of the room. We've been to hockey games, right? When you're in the front row, there's still the barrier between you and the action. I just personally don't like it, and I don't think it is reasonable forever to be in that scenario.
Yeah, I think for a while WWE is going to have that going forward. I just think it's going to be their company decision, and it's not going to matter what state they go to.
Well, here's what's different between them and AEW, because JR actually took a shot at plexiglass on Dynamite this past Wednesday or last night, is the difference is WWE has to get back, or if they want to, part of their business model is to get back on the road for live events and touring. AEW has a show a week that they do. They're not doing live events, on outside of their TV taping. So it's less, to your point, Dave, it's less of a concern for them probably than it is for WWE as a corporate entity with people to answer to, stockholders, all the other stuff. AEW doesn't have that concern right now.
So you just don't like the layer of glass between yourself and the wrestling, is what you're saying?
Yes.
So do you take your glasses off when you watch?
Depends on what I'm watching.
I don't know, man. I kind of liked it when they were beating on it. When they were beating on it, for me, that added something. And I think it might be, I'm just comparing it to the weeks before of absolute drivel sides. Yeah. So compared to what we had, I like it. Compared to what we had way before, no, I'm with you. I don't want the glass, but I didn't mind it at all. And I thought it was, okay, if they're going to use AEW's idea, they actually took it a little further. And so I kind of liked it. And now I want penalty boxes for tag team matches.
Someone sent out a tweet that wasn't fact-checked that said they had a picture of Michael Cole back in 2012 or whenever it was, when he had his own little penalty box at ringside, and they said, look, Michael Cole knew about COVID before anybody else. Good stuff. But we'll see what happens in the future. That was AEW Double or Nothing, and this has been a very AEW heavy show. Again,
wait. Let's just talk about, one more thing before you switch gears. Last night, Billy Gunn in the Battle Royal, he was Andre the Giant last night.
Huge.
Biggest guy. He towered over Luchasaurus, over Wardlow, over all of them. The beast last night is Billy Gunn.
Yeah, I don't know who booked that Battle Royal, but that was not good. That was the worst thing of the week that I saw. I watched Monday Night, I watched Impact, and I watched both of those. The worst match of the week was that Battle Royal. And I like Luchasaurus, but there's a lot of weird shit he does. Like, he just walks up to people and stares at them like, hit them up. Like, we get it. You're big. We can see it. We all get it at this point. You're big. And he just keeps walking up to Wardlow. And Wardlow is, and not even before Wardlow, Luther about killed Marco, and Luchasaurus is just watching it happen.
Yeah.
And then like 5 seconds later, Marco's back up trying to throw out Luchasaurus. There was a lot of really dumb shit that happened in that match. They got to the end and the business of getting the number one contendership, okay. But there was some lazy booking and lazy creative that went to that battle. And battle royals are hard. Now, I will say that. That's the most difficult match to make hard. And the All-In Battle Royal, I always say that, best battle royal in the history of the business, the first All-In. Dave was there. Dave was my getaway man.
I was. Yeah. I was driving the getaway car. Yes.
Yeah, so because I had to leave that and go do an appearance, so I had to change. So I think he was trying to check the rearview mirror out to see some action back there. I'm just saying. Battle royals are hard, but man, you got there should have been more moments of throwing. I mean, that's the big man's match. I'm a little guy. I get it. Give me my moment. Throw my ass out of there. Battle royals are a big man's match. Billy Gunn should have been slinging bodies. Luchasaurus should have been slinging bodies. Luther could have got somebody out. Then finally we get down to Wardlow, and maybe him and MJF could kind of do something similar, whatever, that to take each other out or whatever. But that's the big man match. If there's ever a big man match, that's it.
Yeah, and they could have made Wardlow by having him win that battle royal. because now it puts him in a match with Cody, which now you throw in the whole MJF thing. Now it's a variety of options as to how you can go with that. But I don't know if Jungle Boy was the right call there.
It was the unexpected call.
Well, I think, what they're going to do is what Cena was doing with the U.S. title for a while. They're going to use Cody to build guys. Cody goes out there. He's going to shine Jungle Boy up through the roof, make him look like $1 million, then get the win, and everybody wins. And he can do that with a couple different talents, and they'll be elevated just by being in that match. So, and then, who knows? Maybe they'll go the other way. Maybe Jungle Boy gets this surprise win, and we get this feel-good moment. That's not what I would do in a million years, but right now I see Cody just shining, working. I'll tell you what's real weird, too. He talked about how he was going to be the workhorse. Minutes after the women's champion just came out there in a non-title match days after winning the title. They should have kind of separated that promo from her match from me. Number one, she shouldn't have been in a non-title match, period, because that shit is stupid. But seeing that it was her, they should have separated her match from that particular promo, because I was kind of like, well, somebody else just really did that 5 minutes ago. And two,
on the same show.
I pay an insane amount of attention to detail, so maybe a lot of people didn't catch on to that. To me, that sounded weird, but Cody did have the best promo of the week, too.
He was fantastic. He was absolutely fantastic. Now, we all know I'm a huge fan of Cody.
Blood. It's almost in his blood, I think, than promo.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And, the TNT Championship, the incomplete TNT Championship, will be defended weekly on the broadcast by Cody, he said, as well. But that was a heartfelt and real passionate promo. And it was almost like the one he did a couple of weeks back, as we entered this whole COVID-19 situation, which got a little bit of heat for from some people about, we're still going to live our lives and blah, 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 blah. He's that damn good. And he slipped some things in there, too. I don't think they're going to hear me or listen to me up in Connecticut or welcome back in Connecticut, Good stuff. But again, that's what's great about it is there were no knockout punches. There were just a bunch of little jabs and a lot of subtleties within that you could take as you wanted, but it was clear how he wanted you to take them. And that takes skill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's a fantastic, his dad is my all-time pick for number one talker in the business over everybody.
Yep. So. Guys, just a few minutes remain. We've got 5 minutes to spend on NXT after we talk about the big takeaway from AEW Dynamite last night, which was Mike Tyson appearing on the show just a few days removed from after being a part of Double or Nothing, where he did not get involved except for yawning at ringside. Bad camera take. But this time he did go face-to-face with Chris Jericho. We've seen...
And Dameon, who called it?
Shane did.
Hurricane called it. I didn't see that coming. I thought he was brought in to work with Cody and Archer, and Shane reminded us all Jericho and Tyson have that history.
It's funny too, Shane. You reminded us of that. I forgot about it. Then I was reminded again, and I'm like, wait a minute. He came back in 2010? I don't know. That might have been the week when I stopped watching for a little while, but I just didn't remember that at all. And then you got Hornswoggle in there too. I'm like, this is fantastic. But Jericho bringing up that history in his discussion with Mike Tyson in the ring. Here's my problem. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to say how I felt about it. I want to hear from the two that are smarter than me. We'll start with you, Dave. Jericho, Tyson.
I think I want to hear your view first.
Yeah, I do too. Please go ahead.
You're an important part of this process, man. We got a promoter, we got a talent, and we need a casual viewer. That's a big part. That's a big element of pro wrestling. So,
as a casual viewer who saw it in 1998,
a more than casual viewer, I should say.
As a casual viewer who saw it in 1998, I said Tyson and Austin, Tyson and Austin, Tyson and Austin. The only thing was some random, wasn't Tyson, whoever one of the bodyguards were, getting trapped under, the melee. But it was, to me, the exact same thing WWE did with Tyson in 98. And here's where I struggle. I don't know what else they should have done. But having seen that and seen it then, the words leading up to it didn't matter. They weren't as believable because Austin and Tyson, they had a legit beef. Baddest man on the planet. Either one could have held that. Jericho's He's Le Champion, not the baddest man on the planet. So different scenario, but the pull apart, everybody involved, the melee, everybody coming down, trying to make it feel as real as it could, was just, for me, too similar to what we saw, and I'll make this point clear, 22 years ago, which means a lot of people have no idea. That's what the problem I had with it. I love it. I think Tyson is a great get for AEW. I think it's going to be transformative for them on a media basis and on an expansion basis. I think Jericho's the right person. It just was too familiar for me to say, "Oh my God, this is awesome."
Yeah, I think Jericho did an amazing job of setting the table. Unfortunately, he knocked the table over. It ruined it because he didn't seem like he was following along. He seemed like the lights were on, but nobody was home. It's like, I'm thinking, okay, it could be a big pull apart. Tyson's wearing the AEW shirt. That's going to be the money shot. That's going to be huge. You can see how you have MMA, Bellator star, Jake Hager involved. You had Tyson's guys who none of them look like fighters. It's like they find these guys, somewhere they just walked in together. But all of a sudden, Tyson rips his shirt off. He's flicking at Jericho's face, trying to punk him out, smiling. He wasn't making it serious. So as excited as I was when that happened, it's like, well, there's no more heat because now Tyson's not taking this seriously. And the part was so fabricated. Like, you didn't feel like, holy shit, they're at each other. Because you knew there were way too many people out there. Like, if Jericho would have got at least one thing on Tyson, I think that would have been great. But there was nothing there for me.
All right, a little choppy there on the audio. Not your fault, Dave. Sorry about that. Shane, I hope you heard Dave's response for the most part anyways. Yep. Well, sum it up for us.
I think that it was rushed. It should have been laid out a little better. Mike Tyson's entourage was actually star-studded. I don't know how many people knew it.
I'm hearing that. I didn't know it at all.
Vitor Belfort is a MMA legend. Henry Cejudo currently has 2 UFC championships. The only reason he doesn't have them is because he just said he's not getting paid enough, so he decided to walk away from UFC. He's a champ. He has 2 of them. Then you have Sugar Rashad Evans, the man who knocked Chuck Liddell out so damn hard, he never recovered. Yeah. Chuck Liddell never recovered, and you can Google this, go YouTube it, Sugar Rashad Evans knocking Chuck Liddell out. I thought I saw a murder. I literally thought I saw a murder in the UFC cage. But you didn't tell your audience of that. Exactly. Those personalities.
That was the problem.
If you tell me they are coming to the ring, I'm like, oh, shit. And then you got this chubby bastard with the makeup on the eyes. Whoever he was, get him the hell out of there. AEW has to realize this is still their product, still their house. Anybody that doesn't belong in that ring, they need to get them the hell out. But if you got Mike Tyson and those MMA guys, and then you got the AEW and you got Jack Hager and all of these, combustible elements, it was just a little rushed, a little too chaotic. We got to the business, we got to the pull apart. To Dameon's point, it was 22 years ago. It was done. It had been done almost exactly the same 22 years ago. At the same point, there's a lot of people watching this that are younger than 22, don't even know that shit happened.
Exactly. Yeah, you're right.
So I see what you're saying. I don't disagree. It should have been a little bit different, but we still got to the business of the big pull apart. Mike Tyson is going to come back now, I'm guessing. They did something on social media. He said he's going to return to kick Jericho's ass.
Yeah.
That's where they wanted to get. Overall, it definitely could have, from a production standpoint and from a creative standpoint, it could have been done a lot better. But the business happened. I'm going to tell you, Chris Jericho tried to steer. That was like steering the Titanic. Because Tyson was going off the rails and ripping his shirt. And the shirt was whooping his ass there for a second now. So I'm just, credit to the shirt. But Jericho steered the ship, got it back to where it needed to be. And man, it's just amazing that you got one of the most popular athletes of all time, Mike Tyson, in that ring. Jericho still was the star.
Yeah.
Still was the star.
Yep. And he had to be.
Owns AEW right now. He's the biggest star of the company. It's Jericho, hands down.
He's the biggest star in the business.
In the business.
In the business right now, the biggest star, the biggest name maker, the biggest noise maker in the business is Chris Jericho.
Damn. You're right. The way you just said it right there, the biggest noisemaker, the biggest star, you're right. He's everywhere. He's doing everything.
Yeah, and it's all good.
And he's crossing platforms.
I do a lot of shit. Half of it sucks. Everything he does is good. That's the main thing. Biggest star in the business right now.
Well, Tyson and Jericho, here's a question that came up on the PWR Today podcast earlier today that I did with Meathead that's available on all of your podcast channels. Fyter Fest, which they intend to do once people can be there, or All Out for the Tyson-Jericho match that's presumed to happen? Where should it be?
Hell, I don't know.
It's got to be All Out. You have to give Tyson time to get ready for something like this.
Yeah, the more time Tyson has to prepare for this, the better. I think you're going to have to keep his interactions as limited as you can, or you're going to do a cinematic thing. If you can do a cinematic thing where we can cut, come back, do something crazy, and now you got Vito Belfort in there, and now you got Rashad Evans in there, and these guys, if they're up to coming back, something kind of cinematic, maybe a being the elite versus the inner circle, something like that might be cool too. But Tyson's not a pro wrestler. This shit ain't easy. You can't just go out there. They were showing some clips of Rodman and Malone, and that shit was rotten. You just see these world-class athletes out there, and they're jumbling around like two giraffes out there. They just found their legs. Pro wrestling isn't easy. Just because you're a star in one sport doesn't mean you can just come over here and do it. So it needs to be protected.
On that note, thank you for those comments and those insights and those very insightful comments. I want to remind everybody, though, that, again, each week here on Primetime with Shane Helms, Hurricane Helms, you win not only the color war, but you win the shirt war, because you've got a tremendously colored T-shirt on right there. And I've seen that before, but tell us exactly what it is and where we can get it.
You can find this at collarandelbowbrand.com. This is one of their many, many shirts that the reason I like these type of shirts is because you can show your love for pro wrestling, but also it doesn't scream pro wrestling in your face. Because a lot of pro wrestling shirts, mine included, the Hurricane ones, they can be a little hokey, they can be a little pro wrestling-y. These are everyday shirts. This just shows I'm a fan, I'm proud to be a fan, but it's not train, say your prayers, eat your vitamins type shit, you know what I mean? So I like it. It matches the headband. I got a little Sinestro action going on, so.
Is that one of those ads I see for the pharmaceuticals on TV? Sinestro?
See? This is where you lose points.
Collarandelbowbrand.com. Dave, what's the promo code this week?
Well, you can go on collarandelbowbrand.com, use promo code PWR360, and you'll be saving some good money. Check out some of the cool stuff. We got a whole new line of Collar Elbow brand shorts, hats, and jackets.
It's PWR360 is the code to use at collarandelbowbrand.com. We didn't get to NXT. Unfortunately, I don't have time, unfortunately. Sorry. We'll cover it.
Drake Maverick was the star again. That's all we know.
Drake Maverick advancing in the championship tournament as a released employee from the company.
Yes.
We'll promise to spend more time on NXT this Saturday when we are back with you again with the entire team from the Pro Wrestling Report on Fight TV. Saturday night, 7 p.m. It's our debut on Saturday nights. We return to the weekends, and we'll be bringing you Pro Wrestling Report full weekend review of the week of professional wrestling. We'll talk about SmackDown. We'll talk about NXT, Raw, and all that happened in between. So be sure to tune in for that on Fight and across our social media platforms as well. Head to collarandelbow.com. Use promo code PWR360. And also, we bring you a lot of video shows, and we might bring you a little bit of a podcast once every day during the week on Monday through Friday with news you can use on the go. But Shane, Hurricane Helms, there's a highway everybody should be on.
Yeah, Highway to Helms is Highway, the number 2, last name Helms. Put it all together, Highway to Helms, on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever your favorite podcast may be, you'll find me.
It's well written. You got a PR team back there as well?
I need one.
Hey, it's okay. Your tweets are now going to be tagged with disclaimers for anything that you put out there.
Yeah, I should not be held accountable for anything I say or do. I do come with that.
That's why you and Dave get along so well. He has told me that for years.
Yeah, don't blame me. Even though I said it,
don't blame me. It's not my fault.
Yeah. Guys, thanks for joining us. All of you, thank you for watching us as well. I'm Dameon Nelson saying so long. Thank you. For David Herro and Shane Helms, we'll see you again Saturday night, Fight TV, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Be sure to join us when we bring you another edition of Primetime. So long, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.